What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you my upset alert games heading into Week 8 of the 2023 college football season. We are now officially heading into the 8th weekend of the college football season, and it's time to give you my upset alert games heading into Week 8. We got another pretty big-time weekend coming up in the 2023 college football season. A lot of great games. Some rival games are also happening this weekend. Looking back to my upset alert video from last weekend, we only had one upset that happened, so we had a pretty quiet weekend with the upset alert games from last weekend. The only upset that happened for us was Notre Dame upsetting USC. That was a big upset there. USC likely out of the playoff after that loss to Notre Dame. And then the other games, we missed a lot of games. Like I said, we only had one upset that happened. We missed Arizona upsetting Washington State, Oklahoma State upsetting Kansas, Pittsburgh upsetting Louisville, and then obviously Missouri upsetting Kentucky. I mean, that's not really a big upset there, but the list just goes on and on. Again, we had a lot of upsets last weekend in week number 7. But looking ahead to this weekend, again, how this upset alert video works, I give you 4 games total, or actually 8 games total, and 4 games each for the games that are most likely to be upsets, and then 4 games that are most not likely to be upsets. And in order for me to call it an upset, the spread has to be single digits in order for me to call it an upset. And again, I just do top 25 versus top 25 matchups and then top 25 versus unranked matchups just to make it make more sense. And whoever that highest ranked team is going into this weekend, and that team is going to be on upset alert. So let's get right into it here with my upset alert games heading into week number 8 of the 2023 college football season. And we'll start with the most not likely upset alert category. We'll start with this one. It's Air Force and Navy. This game's at noon Eastern time on CBS. Air Force favored by 10.5 in this one, and the over and under is at 36. This is a rival game. You never know what can happen here between these two teams. Air Force undefeated going into this game. Navy, they haven't really been a good team this year, but again, this is a rival game. Navy's playing at home in this one. You never know what can happen. Navy can probably give Air Force their first loss of the season. Air Force is really good at running the football. Navy is good at running the football, so I think both of these teams are going to want to run the football in this game. I think it will be a defensive battle, too. I don't really see a lot of high-scoring game in this one. I don't really see a lot of point scoring. I see both of these teams running out the clock as well. So we're going to see a lot of, running plays in this game. But again, this is a rival game. You never know what can happen, but I don't really expect an upset here to happen. I think Air Force is a talented team this year, especially when they're ranked in the top 25 already, after, that weekend. I mean, they did pull off a win against Wyoming. That was enough for them to put them in the top 25. So Air Force and Navy here at noon Eastern time on CBS. Let's go to the second game. We got Michigan and Michigan State. This game's at 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. Michigan's favored by 24 in this game, and the over and under is at 48. Michigan, their offense has been rolling the last 3 weeks of the college football season. This is a really good offensive team going into this game. Defensively, they're really strong on that side of the football as well. I know this is a rival game that you never know what can happen here, but I just don't really see an upset to be pulled off here. I know Michigan State has home field advantage as well going into this game, but the Spartans have just not really been good this year. Mel Tucker got fired early in the year as well, so that was the reason why Michigan State's been having kind of a bad season like this. But again, this is a rival game. I know it's a rival game. You never know what can happen. Michigan State pulled off a huge win against Michigan a couple years ago here at home, but I just don't really see that happening this year. I think Michigan's getting better and better. You've seen it in the last 3 weeks of the college football season. Their offense is rolling, and definitely their defense. So Michigan and Michigan State here, rival game at 7:30 p.m. on ABC. And again, the Wolverines are favored by 24 in this game. Moving on to the third game, we got Duke and Florida State. This game's at 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. Florida State favored by 14 in this one, and the over and under is at 49. The FBI does not like Duke in this game. And the over and under is expecting a low-scoring game here, which I could very well see it playing out that way. Both defenses are pretty good this year. Offensively, Florida State has the advantage. I mean, I would give the advantage to Florida State in offense. Duke's only loss coming to Notre Dame this year, so they haven't lost an ACC game just yet. And I'm very surprised that the spread is that, at double digits for this game. You look back to week 1, early in the year, Duke was a double-digit underdog against Clemson, and they ended up pulling off the upset. That game was at home for them, so that's the reason why I think they won that game. This game is on the road this time, against Florida State here. Very tough place to play here on the road at Florida State, but I do expect almost an upset here to happen. I think this is going to be a really tricky game here for Florida State. I mean, both of these teams are well-experienced teams, and also they're both really good on the defensive side of the football. So watch out for the Blue Devils to probably make an upset here happen. But this game's at 7:30 Eastern Time. It's a night game here in the ACC on ABC. And again, Florida State favored by 14. Let's now go to my last game now that is most not likely to be an upset alert type game, and that is going to be this one. It's UCLA and Stanford at 10:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. UCLA is favored by 17 in this game, and the over and under is at 53.5. UCLA coming off that pretty close loss to Oregon State this past weekend. They were very competitive, though, in that game. The AP Top 25 did not penalize them out of the Top 25 after that loss, though, because I think UCLA, just because of that Top 25 win against Washington State, that was enough for them to keep them here in the Top 25, and also just the competitiveness of this UCLA team. And also, I didn't penalize them either, my top 25, so I didn't put UCLA out of the top 25 also, but I think this is kind of like a trap game for UCLA. You look at Stanford, they have not been good this year, but last weekend they're coming off that, comeback win against Colorado this past weekend on the road. A lot of people did not expect Stanford to come back in that game, but Stanford did pull off the win. And I think it was kind of like an upset game as well, because Stanford was the team that had the worst record going into that game. Stanford looks like they're going to get better as a team, but I don't really see an upset happening here either. I think UCLA is way too talented, and also Stanford's a little bit young this year. But again, this is a Stanford team that, we did not expect to get a Pac-12 team this year, and maybe be one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country as well. But this game's at 10:30 Eastern Time in the Pac-12 Conference. Again, the Pac-12 has been a very competitive conference this year. We'll see what happens in this game here between Stanford and UCLA. But these are my games that are most not likely to be upset alert type games heading into week number 8. Let's now get into the important games. Let's now get into the games where most likely upsets could happen this weekend. We'll start with this one in the SEC. We got Ole Miss and Auburn. This game is at 7 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. Ole Miss is favored by 6.5, and the over and under is at 56.5. Ole Miss coming out of a bye week this weekend. They're heading on the road here to play at Jordan-Hare Stadium, one of the toughest places to play in the SEC this upcoming weekend. I mean, they're going up against an Auburn team that's not been really good this year, but again, this is kind of like the time where Auburn starts to get better. They can kind of get better down the stretch for the rest of the year. They got blown out, though, blasted by LSU this past weekend on the road in Death Valley, but this time they're back at home here with a lot of confidence. I can really see an upset happening here, but again, I think that Ole Miss offense is going to be really too much for the Auburn defense to handle. But again, if their defense can make some big-time stops, I think Auburn has a really good chance to win this game. It wouldn't really shock me if this was an upset, though. But again, that would ruin kind of like Ole Miss's chances to go to the SEC championship anyway. But this will be a night game at 7 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. Again, Hugh Freeze going up against his former team in Ole Miss and everything. So there's a lot of storylines going into this game. So Ole Miss and Auburn here in the battle of the SEC East, or actually the SEC West. Can Auburn get their first win of the college football season against an SEC team, or I should say their first conference win of the season? We'll find out this upcoming weekend. Second game here, I got Utah and USC here in the Pac-12 at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox. The Trojans are favored in this game by 7 points, and the over and under is at 56. Utah, their offense has not been great this year, but their defense continues to be dominant. They were dominant in that Cal game. I thought that was going to be like a trap game for Utah, but they took care of business in that game. USC coming off that brutal blowout loss to Notre Dame this past weekend. How will they look in this game against Utah, especially after that loss to Notre Dame this past weekend? I think being back at home, it gives USC some comfortable, things going into this game, but this is always a pretty good matchup between these two teams. This is also a revenge game here for USC off the regular season from last year, and then, of course, in the Pac-12 championship game last year as well. I don't think Utah is going to win this game without Cam Rising in here, but the defense, obviously, for USC has not been good either. So I'm kind of expecting a high-scoring game, even though the over and under is at 56. I do expect a high-scoring game here between these two teams. So Utah and USC here in the Pac-12, both teams with one loss on the year. And again, this game's at 8 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. Let's go to the third game. It's Tennessee and Alabama. This game's at 3:30 Eastern time on CBS. Alabama favored by 9.5, and the over and under is at 49. Tennessee coming off a really close win against Texas A&M. They had a bye week a couple weeks ago to prepare for that game against Texas A&M. So this team has lost to Florida already in the SEC Conference. Alabama, they're coming off that win against Arkansas. Very close game. You know, Arkansas put up a really good fight in that game, but Alabama, again, their offense just really struggled in that game as well. Both of these offenses are kind of similar. They're not the same offenses as they were from last year. Last year's game between these two teams, it was a really high-scoring game between these two teams. Both teams are ranked, I believe, in the top 10 as well. So we're kind of expecting a really good game here between these two teams once again. But I don't really expect a high-scoring game like it was last year. I do expect a low-scoring game. Both defenses are ranked in the top 20. I did my game preview / game prediction on this game yesterday. And again, if you have not seen that video, go back and watch that video. I did predict Alabama to win this game by a field goal. I think a turnover probably changed the game here if both of these teams. It's a defensive battle in this game. But, you know, this is a lot of history in this rivalry between Tennessee and Alabama. Tennessee has not won in Tuscaloosa, you know, in like 20 years. If they can do that this weekend, that gives them good momentum going into the rest of the year. It probably has a chance for them to beat Georgia as well and make a run for the SEC championship. But Alabama, this is a must-win situation for them as well to keep their playoff hopes alive. Again, they already have a loss this season to Texas, but we'll see what happens here in this game here between Tennessee and Alabama. So this game's at 3:30 Eastern time on CBS, but it's not the biggest game of the weekend coming up this weekend here in week number 8. The biggest game of the weekend, that brings me to our last upset alert game heading into this weekend of the college football season in week number 8, and that is going to be Penn State and Ohio State. This game's at noon Eastern time on Fox. The Buckeyes are favored by 4.5 in this one, and the over and under is at 46.5. So we're expecting a low-scoring game here between these two teams, which I think it will happen. I gave you a game preview / game prediction on this game as well. I did predict the Buckeyes to win this game. You know, by 7 points or maybe like by a touchdown perhaps. But again, you know, Ohio State playing at home, I think that's going to favor them a lot in this game. I think the home crowd's going to be behind them as well. This is kind of like the first true tough test here for Penn State. They haven't really had a tough test yet this year, maybe besides Iowa and maybe besides West Virginia. But other than that, Penn State's not really had a tough game yet until this one. Ohio State's already played a tough game against Notre Dame, so I think that's really, you know, the kind of the motivation for this Ohio State team. They've already played like a tough competition already. This will be a really tough game here for them. I mean, obviously, Penn State going on the road at Columbus is going to be a very tough place to play. But again, one of these teams are going to lose their first game of the season. I mean, this is kind of like a playoff game as well to see who can kind of run the table to go to the playoff for the, you know, whole year and everything. But this game's at noon Eastern time, so it's an early kickoff on Fox. College Game Day will be down here for this game. It's obviously the game of the weekend. And usually when it's a College Game Day type game, obviously that game is going to be the game of the weekend. And it's always the last game here on my Upset Alert videos. But these are my Upset Alert games heading into week number 8 of the 2023 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about these Upset Alert games. Who do you see getting upsetted? Or actually, who do you see, which team do you think gets upset this weekend? Let me know down in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.